I really need to see people as humans saying, what's next for me? People should be going to college and learning more higher level things going forward in order to be ready for the next generation.
If you look at their track record for the number of accidents and people killed in those accidents, if this was a drug company running tests, there would be outrage and very strong protocols in place. There's an entire generation that's going to live and demonstrate those traits, and these are future leaders. What does that say about our society?
Welcome back to another episode of Two Lit Chicks. We are excited to bring to you our guests today. We have some other podcast co-hosts that are on, Renard as well as Amir. This space is where powerful podcasts can come together and demonstrate and show how we can collaborate and not compete for our particular platforms. So this particular co-hosts are from Beard. Now, is it Beard and Boardrooms? Is that correct?
Black Belts and Boardrooms.
No, Black Belts and Boardrooms. Get me corrected. Black Belts and Boardrooms. And so I would like to welcome our guests as well as my co-host, who is
Fern Johnson here. And thank you for Amir and Renard for joining us today.
Oh man, we are happy to be here. It is weird being on the other side of this. I will say that. Very weird.
And so, to get started, tell us about the name of your podcast, as well as what is the primary theme, and then we'll just roll into the conversation.
Yeah. I'll tell you. So the funny thing, and I'll give you a little backstory. Me and Amir met because we had the same executive coach. So we met in that cohort. We didn't know each other beforehand. So we got on a call one day and we had so many synergies together. Amir was like, if you want to start a podcast, let me know. And it took me about 5 seconds to say, yeah, let's start a podcast. Of course, this was something that was very uncomfortable. So we decided on the name Black Belts and Boardrooms because we are both black belts in martial arts. Of course, Amir is a black belt in Taekwondo, I'm a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And of course, we're both in the corporate space of IT and in two different industries. So we thought it was great to merge both leadership and martial arts together. And now, sometimes depending on who the person we have on, sometimes we give black belts every so often. It just depends on who they are and their black belt in their industry.
Well, congratulations on being a black belt. We do have, my daughter is right now, she is a red belt in Taekwondo.
Nice.
So she's moving right along. She'll be testing on tomorrow. So she's getting really, really close. So she's been in for 4 or 5 years now. I'm starting to lose count. So I do know it takes a lot of effort to become a black belt. So my goodness, I would never want to get into an altercation with either one of you.
What made you guys put that martial? I mean, well, not that question. I would say, what's an overlap? Like, what is there from martial arts that works with your corporate roles in technology? Is there a discipline or a trait that overlaps?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take this question, Renard, but I know you have a perspective because you and I chat about this too. So the overlap is quite simply discipline. One of the things that we learned through our martial arts journey is stress inoculation. How do you control that stress level? So when you are on the dojo floor, whether it's Taekwondo or any martial art, there's a certain level of stress that comes with it, especially if you're brand new. So what we try and do is bring some of those disciplined learnings into the conversation so that those who are in the corporate space can actually take advantage of it. And if in the process they get excited about martial arts and decide, hey, I want to be uncomfortable and learn the disciplines and the craftsmanship that comes through the martial arts journey, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I get excited about that. So I know Renard does too.
Yeah. I will say that the main word is being uncomfortable. That's what martial arts just teaches you, how to be calm in a lot of uncomfortable situations. And as y'all know, especially in the corporate world, there's going to be many times where a lot of stuff is on fire, etc., and that you have to be calm and collective to make sure that the team can get through, because they see you frazzled and losing your mind. Of course, they're going to do the same thing. They feel like they don't have somebody steering the ship correctly. So martial arts bring a lot into that. It also, I tell a lot of people, if you go train, especially jujitsu, someone's trying to choke you out or break your arm. Everything else is pretty minor once you're trying to deal with that for an hour. So when I go to work, for the most part, I'm one of the most calmest people in the office because I trained jujitsu for so long. It gives you a lot of peace and a lot of calm for actually being a very rough sport for the most part.
Taekwondo people like to kick you in the face.
But it sounds like there's a violent side to each one of you. Choke you out, kick you in the face, or break your arm. We're not messing with y'all, brothers.
Tell me about it. So what does leadership look like before you get this title?
You know what? Leadership, and if you're talking about before you get a black belt or just in general, I think leadership is technically not a title. I think anybody could be a leader no matter what level you are. If you're an IC, if you're mid-level, etc., anyone can be a leader. But I think there's a calling to leadership. For me, in general, I had to see other great leaders before I decided to go into management and then go into leadership, because I always say there's a difference between the two. So I had to see it before I said, man, I saw one of the great leaders when I was working in one of my previous job, company called Lehigh Hanson, had a great mentor there. I saw him and I was like, man, I want to do what he does. I see how he gets the team ready. They're focused. They want to go over. They want to do more. So that's what got me into the position saying, hey, I want to lead. It was very uncomfortable. I'll be honest. My very first job, far as management is concerned, I was still an IC. They don't give you a playbook on how to be a manager on your first run. You still mentally an IC. So I had to learn and see great mentors and great leaders and to understand how I wanted to lead going forward.
Yeah, for me, it goes back to when I was a teenager. I decided to start a consulting company. So this would have been in the dot-com boom days. So late 90s, early aughts. And I very quickly realized that I had to pick up some serious leadership skills fast, because running a business is no joke. And nobody takes a 19-year-old very seriously, was another point I learned very quickly.
So, a lot of our audience is really, we're reaching the next generation of leaders in tech. So we're really giving back. I think we all have such great experiences here to help that give back. So let's say you're talking to the 20 to 30 audience age range. What would you talk to them about leadership and a skill that they should really hone now in their early in their career?
I talk about this often, and I always say, just far as leadership, I always go back to building relationships. It was something I wish I knew when I started. I was just, man, I need a job. Let me focus on that and not really build the connections with other people. But the power of building connections and building relationships is very strong, especially the more you move up, people start watching your career over time. You start building true relationships with people, not just this transactional thing there. So I would say leadership is big, but building the relationships are, because sometimes in a sense, especially when I grew up, it takes a village to sometimes raise a child. In a sense, that's the same thing about building those relationships. You get to talk to other people, different industries. Some people are at your level, some people are higher. Those are the people you need along the way in order to continue working on your craft as you get up towards leadership.
Yeah, and to Renard's point, I'm just going to add that it's very important to be comfortable with yourself and understand that you have a certain set of skills that only you are good at. So building that craftsmanship is going to be very important. So to Renard's point about networking, you got to be able to tell somebody what you're really good at, what is the value that you can bring and want to bring to them, because that is how you'll start distinguishing yourself from the rest of the peers that you have.
So I know that technology really moves very fast, and all of us, the foundation of, even how we know each other in our network is basically IT. What is one tech habit that you wish you would have learned earlier that would have accelerated your career?
Man, Amir, I'm gonna let you go first on that one. I got to think of that.
I see how it is, Renard. Give me the tough questions, my friend. Yeah, so the one thing I will say that I wish I learned early on was really sales skills and communication. Because one of the things that I felt held me back very early on, I'll come back to the 19-year-old me who wanted to sell his services as a consultant. I had no clue about sales. I could talk, I could talk about technology, I could talk about solutioning, I could get into the details and get into it very quickly. But then what is that value proposition for the business? Because ultimately technology was a means to an end and is a means to an end. It's really the value that we each bring to the customers that we serve. So having clarity about what that value proposition is and then being able to successfully communicate that, I think that is an art that takes time and practice. So if there was one advice in that vein, I would say communication and salesmanship, being able to tell that story.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I usually call it soft skills for the most part. It's not the technical know-how, but the soft skills, like Amir was talking about, in order to articulate that to someone. That is something I definitely didn't have when I was in my 20s. I was just, like I said, we talked about ICs. It was about the tech. It was how to do that. But the soft skills to articulate it to anybody, no matter what level you're at, is very valuable. And also having that presence in a room, I would say that. That's something that I think builds over time. I always say, be a lion in a room with other lions. I think you gotta understand yourself first and be comfortable, like Amir said, before you start walking into those rooms and be able to show what value you can give.
I'll add to that. I would agree. The strategic, I call it strategic selling, Amir. So it's very similar. But as you move up the ladder, you really have to be able to communicate and what is the strategy and sell in something, right? And at an executive level. So I couldn't agree with you more. I'll add one more, and that's just understanding finance. Because we're all about the tech, right? And learning that tech. But if you don't understand the financial impact to the business or the productivity it's going to bring, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game all the way around, right? And so to sell in that strategy, to sell in that technology, you've got to know the numbers. So I tell the young folks today, if you don't, yes, learn the technology, but learn a little bit about finances and the impact and how financials play within a company, I think also is important too.
When a lot of times when I see a lot of young people that we hire, like either fresh out of college or that or either they're certified in technology and they have that natural aptitude. I can honestly say the one skill that I see very common that's lacking across the tech industry is communication, because people who are very gifted in technology tend to be very introverted. That's not their natural strength. Yeah. And so I really think y'all are spot on when y'all are talking about the communication, because it's stretching them, right? It's stretching the young people. So my next question that I have is, how should young people think about using AI and technology ethically while staying competitive in the workforce?
Man, I think it's for me, AI isn't going anywhere. We even off the air of this, we talk about AI a bunch of times. AI is not going to go anywhere, and I think right now at its point, it's a helper. But I also feel that the human in the loop still needs to be around that as well. We just can't give everything and just rely on AI. And I don't know, even know if y'all saw recently what they had this new system, the Moat book, where all the AI agents, no humans are in that, all AI agents connect to it, and they basically start having conversations with each other.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it just came out, which that worries me a little bit if we're talking about AI governance. But I think that in this generation and the generation that are coming in, they're more tech savvy, etc. So AI has to be used right now as a helper. If people are mindful of that, I think we can move forward along with the technology going forward.
Are y'all using AI
Yeah.
professionally and personally?
Yes, both
What's your
sides. I
favorite
use it on
tool?
a regular basis. Say that again.
What's your favorite tool?
For me, it's ChatGPT. I love ChatGPT. I've used it on a lot of things. I try not to have too many conversations with it. I don't want it to be my therapist, but I think it is a good helper, especially if you're trying to grab a lot of information pretty fast, and also the ideas that you have to actually break those down and see if they make sense. I've used it for a couple of not work projects but personal projects I had. I basically had a little conversation. This is what I was thinking. This is the information I needed in order to get that done.
Amir, are you using it?
I am. So personally, I have a preference for Claude. So I use Claude for
Like my boyfriend. He's my boy.
yeah. So coming back to your question, Alicia, so yes, tools wise on a personal level, I use Claude. I can't talk about professionally about any of the things we're doing, but to come back to your question, I think you ask a very important question for us because the ethics of AI is something I think we'll all wrestle with as a society. Part of me, as a technologist, wants to believe that there's going to be tremendous value that we will all benefit from in technology. And this thing is, without a doubt, going to open up many different new ways of working as well as take away work that is tedious today. But on the more societal level, I think about, the agricultural times and how things were self-sustaining. We are now going to potentially be in a time where we are even more dependent on machines and robots and technology to get even very basic things done. Let's take, for example, if I'm going to go from point A to point B, I could order in Uber, for example, or take my own personal vehicle if I have one. But this from experience that those drivers are going away. So there's going to be more and more vehicles that are self-driving, autonomous. You can play that forward and you can say, okay, outpatient procedures today in the medical field used to be the purview of an expert called a doctor. Well, what if the doctors are no longer in some of those procedures and it's simply just a machine that performs those procedures? And then you can take it even forward into your household. There's companies today experimenting with robots that come into your home and then can do all kinds of things. The first of them is going to be launched, in fact, I think next month as a subscription. But it's not going to be fully autonomous just yet. But there's another person far, far away connecting to your robot via the internet and has access to a recording device, both audio and video, and moving around in your home. So imagine that person is no longer there. Now it's a fully autonomous machine. So my point is that, what that does is expands the lifestyles of each and every one of us. And we can argue the ethics of an expanded lifestyle, whether through a capitalistic lens or a socialist lens. Mm-hmm. But furthermore, we can also argue that what it does to us as people is takes away some of the things that we cherish. I think about my ability cognitively. What does that have? What does it impact in that realm? And then I also think about how much of my metacognition is going to be given away and outsourced to machines. So the question ethics to me is really an important one. And I'm hoping that, we're all going to start thinking about how that plays out societally.
Do you think it's going to drive more regulation or drive any regulation? And can you regulate in this global landscape?
So I'm going to argue that regulation alone is not going to be enough. Mm-hmm. Because every time we talk about regulation, it's always a lagging action. It's never in the moment. And quite candidly, us as technologists, we don't really know how this thing is going to play out. How can we expect regulators to actually have an opportunity to do something sensible? Mm-hmm. Now, they can put guardrails up and they can say that you need to meet X, Y, and Z standard. But ultimately, what it boils down to is that it's going to have to be a combination of both social awareness and social influence, mm-hmm. and also governmental as well as private sector. I think private sector, for the most part, is going to ignore any and all safeguards because for them, it's about profit. Right. They have shareholders, they have the financial balance sheet that needs to be satisfied and markets need to have their piece of the pie. But I think what it really boils down to is both governmental and social influence. But the governmental influence, I believe, will very much be influenced by the societal impacts. How we demonstrate that, how we vocalize it is going to be something we have to, see in the future. But that's kind of where my mindset is.
Renard, do you have anything you want to share?
Man, I feel like Amir said most of it. I'm gonna be honest, but I do agree with him on private and government sectors. There's so many nuances to where AI and robotics are going. We talk about AI for good, the great things that are going to happen, far as maybe finding cancer before, finding treatments, etc., for things like that. But when you go to private and government, you're also talking about the military as well. Military's doing a lot with AI and robotics right now. They're already way ahead of anything that we've seen already. So I think in some aspects we're going to see great things that come from AI and robotics. We're going to see that people are going to take a lot of low hanging fruit away from them, but also I really need to see people as humans saying, what's next for me? If they're going to take all the low hanging fruit, what's next for me? I don't want humans to all of a sudden and people just to stop saying, man, I'm not going to try to upskill myself or advance myself because AI took care of it for me, or the robotic in the house took care of it for me. So that's what I need to see. I always feel that with AI coming in and robotics coming in, there should be more high level jobs going forward. People should be going to college and learning more higher level things going forward in order to be ready for the next generation. So I'm 50-50. I have a worry that people are like, oh, well, AI robotics takes care of it, so I don't have to do anything. I feel you're going to have to improve. Us as humans, we adapt so much to so many things. We had the dot-com boom. We had all these other levels that happened to us over time, and we always excelled. So I'm hoping with this that we continue to do that.
I'm afraid that they will lose our thinking skills. And that kind of went to what you were talking about is, are we so reliant on this technology to do the thinking for us that we don't know that, especially the younger generation who think that, it can solve everything for them. I'm concerned about that and the ability to just have a conversation and to be able to dispute things and conflict resolution and resolve them, right? Without a technology helping you to resolve them. So I am worried about those things as we look at, this AI maturing. And I think that it's going to mature a lot faster than we think.
Yeah, because it's giving everybody access to education, information. What made colleges so valuable was because they had access to knowledge. And so what's happening now is that we have knowledge at our fingertips, and it's just getting smarter and smarter by the day. And I do agree with what Amir said. The government always lags. I had to go to UT Dallas, and they asked me to come to be a conference speaker, and I had to do a lot of research on how did the government actually step in when past technology occurred in the history of the United States of America. So this is a pattern that the government does not step in until lives are lost, and usually until it's relatively too late. And so during my research, I found out that the cotton gin was actually a new technology device that had hit the market. And what it did is it actually drove and increased the number of slavery. It expedited it, because in order for the cotton, it was such a high demand in Europe for cotton. And once the cotton gin actually was developed, then the only thing they needed was the human being to now not just pick the cotton, but they could actually create the cotton a lot faster. But they still needed the manual labor. Right. And so we all know the long-term ramifications of, the slavery, and it even impacts our culture today. But it wasn't until like the 60s, but people had already become millionaires, basically behind the cotton gin before the government would actually step in. So there is some research behind that, Amir. And so I don't expect for the government to step in until this thing is probably well beyond our control.
I love your example of the cotton gin, because I'm just now reminded of let's take Tesla as an example, and I'm not trying to throw Tesla under the bus or Waymo or any of those other companies out there. But if you look at their track record for the number of accidents and people killed effectively in those accidents, if this was a drug company running tests, there would be outrage and very strong protocols in place. Yet Tesla and Waymo get away with much lighter standards in favor of advancement of self-driving vehicles. And we see this today, for example, in AI as well. So if you take social media as a proxy for the way AI is moving forward, the impact of social media on education and learning is well documented and well known. Now you take that forward with what happens to cognitive skills and the attrition of thinking and critical thinking more specifically. We're only going to see the effects a few years down the road, but there's an entire generation that's going to live that and demonstrate those traits, and these are future leaders effectively. What does that say about our society?
Goodness, economics is real. It is driving our country. Were you gonna say something, Fern?
No, everyone said it, so no, we're good. Don't need to belabor the point. So no.
Okay, so what is one skill that you believe will matter more in the next 10 years than really a specific job title? And how can young people start building it right now? Now, this is a deep question because I hadn't even thought about this. What's one skill that you think is just going to be imperative in the next 10 years?
I have a very strong perspective. I don't know if you want to go first, Renard, but
I'll go first. For me, I still think communication is still going to be key in the next 10 years. Even though social media, everything has to be in your hand right then and there. Even like you said, a lot of communication people do text, but I feel like that human interaction is still always going to be there, regardless of what takes over. AI is going to take a big, robotics, we talked about that earlier, but I still think the human communication, the human contact, the human interaction is always still going to be something. It's something that just doesn't go away. No matter how much people want to put technology in front of it, we still need that human interaction. Like I still need to talk to my friends regardless of what technology comes around. So I always think that's going to be a big factor no matter how many years pass.
Yeah, so for me, it boils down to critical thinking. And, I think about the Dunning-Kruger effect, as most of you are familiar, and I'm sure your listeners are too. But, as I think about my ability to just carry my phone that has multiple PhDs in one app, is everything just going to be a question to an AI bot? And the answer is going to give me the confidence that I know the field well enough? That to me is a very frightening thought. The Dunning-Kruger effect, I think we're going to see it magnified. So what I would say is critical thinking is the most important skill, and the way people can actually get about, learning and mastering this skill is to come back to the very first question that anybody asks when it comes to critical thinking and logic. Who benefits from it? And if you start with any problem space by saying who benefits from it and understand then from there where this is leading, that type of thinking is going to be very useful, not just for the individual, but for the teams in which this individual is going to be working in. It could be in the way of liberal arts education. I'm a big fan of liberal arts. I think in the age of AI, that is going to be a very useful level of education. And then more importantly, you're going to need people with deep technical skills to say, what are the machines doing and what do I need them to do differently? So to me, that's really what how I would answer your question.
I love that. I was a liberal arts major. I actually learned technology from my father. So my story is very different and not a straight path on how I got into technology. And I think it's spot on what you're saying, Amir, with liberal arts skills and then you're learning the technology. So yes, you have to know the technology, but I think that will help in the future. And I think people downplay the liberal arts skills, but I think having that background is very helpful for those. So I have a question for you guys. So we talked about skills for the future. Looking back, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh, I got a good one, which is it's half true.
Okay.
And of course, and especially in my family and all that, I grew up with people who work for the post office, etc. The thing they always told me is like, hey, you need to work real hard, keep your head down. Someone's gonna see you and move you up. Over time, half of that's true. Working hard is true. Doing your job is true, but there's other skills that require you to get to the next level, which I had to learn all the time. Because I used to have that mentality of, man, I work real hard. Someone's gonna find me and just move me up to where I need to be. And over time, you find out that's not true. But I understand where they came from. In their generation, that's what everything had to be. My grandfather, who lived to the young age of 94, used to tell me I used to work on on a farm, etc. Used to walk 18 miles to school, back and forth, no problem. Hard work was understandable. So it's for me, that is one thing I will call a half truth for me, understanding the other nuances once I got into the corporate world.
A lot of people call that work hard as an old school mentality. That is
Yes.
definitely not as a future forward perspective to have around, just around work.
Yeah.
Amir, you have a point of view on this one?
I do. The one advice that comes to mind is be self-reliant. And it's a bit of a controversial one, but I'll explain why. What I've learned in my career is that I would not be where I am today. I would not have the skills that I have today if it was just me. So to be self-reliant does not mean that you go the journey alone. You really need a community of people around you who are going to help you. But it also means that you have to be willing to say, hey, I don't know this just now. Who can help me learn it? And being able to then share that back out, I think, is just as powerful. So be self-reliant would be the one that I would say.
Awesome.
What part of your background that basically shaped much of who you are today, that at the time it didn't feel like an advantage, but now when you actually are in the job or in the career, it really gave you an advantage?
Man, for me, we go back to one of the reasons we started the podcast. Martial arts is the reason that it gave me confidence. As a lot of y'all don't know, I used to be a big introvert. I was a very big introvert. I tell people that all the time, they're always shocked because I easily can have conversation now, but I was a big introvert. Martial arts changed a lot of that. It gave me more confidence, etc. It made me understand that being in a lot of uncomfortable situations was actually good for me. Because a lot of us, we like the common things that we normally have, the normal things that happen. But being uncomfortable is something that a lot of people don't like to do. And I found that through jujitsu, and that also trickled into my corporate life. So a lot of times when I got to get on stage or if I got to do presentations, etc., everybody wonders why I'm so comfortable. I'd be like, this I do this this is practice for me. I look at it, if you're in a championship, you're waiting on a championship, practice is supposed to be hard, so the championship game is easy. That's the way I look at most things. So that's why I'm pretty much calm most of the time, and jiu-jitsu is a big part of that. Without that, I may still be the introvert who did not want to become a manager or did not want to become a leader and still just be an IC. Not saying that's a bad thing, but my life changed after jiu-jitsu, so it's a big part of my life.
So Renard, are you saying you're no longer an introvert?
No,
So are you extrovert or you're an ambivert?
so you know what? I'm gonna say I'm half and half introvert.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I like to be at home, me and my wife, and then watch some TV. I think anybody likes that. But far as, let's say, what we do with Lone Star Leadership
Right.
Lounge, that's uncomfortable. That's an uncomfortable thing that we got something together, didn't know what was going to happen, and it became successful because we all had a common goal together. It's still uncomfortable. So it's just new things,
Right.
putting yourself out there, change. So I'm going to say half and half. I'm an introvert. As do I like being at home? Yes. But if you want me to go out and talk to people or do something things, yeah, I'm all for it. Now, will I try hang gliding or jumping out or a plane? No. That I just choose not to
So
do.
I think the term is called ambivert, and that's when you're
Ambivert.
half and when you're both. You have traits of both. So
Okay,
yeah.
good to know.
Yeah.
Amir?
So I used to believe that there's a certain persona that I need to carry, and there's always the two versions of me, So there was one me who was in the professional world, and there was one me who was in my, circle of friends and family. And I recognized that that was actually a mistake because there's only one me. So, that was the one thing that kind of said, okay, I need to try and merge those two things, and not merging them. Once I realized that, hey, it's just one me, I just realized that's the superpower, because I come from two different Asian backgrounds. My mom and dad are one's from East Asia and the Philippines, one's from South Asia, from Pakistan. And I always thought that I was straddling two different worlds. And that idea of two different people, two different worlds kind of stuck with me. And today I see that as a superpower because I can merge the two worlds. And now, I'm reminded of Captain America with those, not Captain America, Captain Planet with those 5 rings, and he brought those together, right? So I actually now today as an adult enjoy the fact that I have a very mixed heritage. And the fact that I no longer have to straddle the two and can be one is really the superpower that I try and lean into more often.
You're bringing your best self to us every day.
That's the plan.
Your total self and your best self.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think a lot of us at our stage in career in life, we kind of take it for granted. But I meet young people who still straddle those lines, whether they do it intentionally or culturally. But that's just, I take it for granted, but I see still people who do that.
Even as I've furthered or been in the professional career a lot longer, one of the things that I did, and this is something if y'all ever think about doing this, I would highly encourage you to do it. So I did an ancestry.com. Have y'all ever done an ancestry.com before?
No.
Yes.
It is very, very interesting results. So I'm gonna make y'all laugh. So it came back in my ancestry that I was 2% Asian. I said I knew I liked sushi for a reason. And so we had an opportunity to visit Japan, and I'm telling y'all, I was like, this has to be somewhere home because it felt so peaceful. I totally loved it. I love the culture. I went to go, I was invited to the Lunar New Year gala this weekend, but I am just very intrigued by the Asian culture because it's a variety. I mean, it's huge. You think it's one side to Asia. It is not. It is several different sides to the Asian culture. And I'm enjoying learning about it. But if y'all have never taken an ancestry.com, I would highly encourage you to do that because you will get so tickled. So, okay, Fern, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Well, we are thankful to have had this conversation to learn about your leadership styles and what motivates you and what's important in the world of AI, what we're thinking about in terms of how do we help the leaders, the future leaders that are coming into this industry. We have to leave with our lightning round. So I kind of gave you a little bit of a heads up. We've got 5 questions. Don't think too hard. What just comes straight to you? All right. All right, Amir, movies, thriller, drama, or rom-com?
Thriller.
Renard.
Thriller.
Okay, no romantic mush for you gentlemen?
Unless my better half wants to watch one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really the only time.
Good answer. All right, name one thing you just can't live without. I'm not sure if it's My Boyfriend is Claude or if it's something else, but what's one thing that you just can't live without?
My wife.
Oh.
Seriously. Yeah. For me, it's my wife.
Double kudos.
Yay.
Amir, how do you top that one? What's the one?
No, I can. I really can. I'm gonna say the same thing. My wife. In fact, we had this conversation. Last week. I was telling my wife, I have no idea what I would do if something were to ever happen to her and she's no longer part of my life. But the stoic in her said, "You'll adapt."
So I think you guys have answered this question, but I'll ask it again. So what's your favorite AI tool? Bernard?
Yeah, mine was ChatGPT.
Claude.
Claude, right, Claude.
Yeah.
All right, so let's think about now that you're going to be spending this time with your number one, your wife's, your favorite place to go on vacation.
Ooh, back home to New Orleans.
Oh, okay. Love it.
London, England.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so now we always have to throw a little food in there. And so I'm going to, probably not what you're thinking, but when you think about barbecue, is it Korean barbecue or Texas barbecue?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna go Texas.
Texas.
Oh, okay. You don't want to cook your own food on the grill on the Korean barbecue?
No,
I did that
no.
once, and I'm like, so I'm paying to cook my own food? Like, what's happening here? What's happening?
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, gentlemen. It was a pleasure to hear more about your stories, hear about your podcast. You know, you guys have got a great following, and we're building our following, and hopefully our followings can come together and support the missions that we have to give back and pay forward to that next generation of leaders in tech. You guys gave us some good nuggets. Stress inoculation stood out to me. The fact that Amir, you know, you understand what your superpower is now, and you're now leaning into that as opposed to not appreciating your heritage and not playing in both camps, but bringing that total self to everyone you work with. And how do you get comfortable with yourself? And Renard, you talked about, you know, just understanding yourself. And when you do, you can show up the best for everyone. And building those relationships is key. So we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Who's closing out? I'm closing out. You're closing out. Who's closing out?
Go for it, Fern.
Well, you know, it's been another great episode. We got two fellas and two chicks coming together. Where can we find you, gentlemen? Where are you on socials? Where can we find you? And how can we find you?
We are Black Belts and Boardrooms on everything.
Okay.
On Instagram, on YouTube, Spotify, you name it, that's where we are.
Well, we will look for you on all the socials. Thanks for joining us today. Listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast, Two Lit Chicks, and their podcast, Black Belts and Boardrooms, on all the socials. Until we see each other again, remember to stay curious, stay bold, and stay lit. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us today. Listen, like, subscribe at Two Lit Chicks Podcast.
Remember, stay curious, stay bold, and always stay lit.
Woo.